Hey guys, the old fart's back in the shop. I'm only getting stuff done in little increments, so I hope continuity is alright, and this is going to be part one actually. By the time I get the next stages done, it's going to be ages, and it'll probably be too long to be all on one video. Anyway, as a reminder, I'm hot by the way. I've just done some yard work, one of many things that keeps me out of the shop. You may remember this Talistock offset centre. It's very small actually, it's only really designed for small lathes, but my old lathe is one I'm not likely to do much super heavy work, and I think for the odd occasion I need to use it, it'll do the job. One of the clips I showed you an error, a problem, because I started on 4140, had a rigidity problem, so I used some fresh material, hadn't got any more 4140, and I got a length of 1045 I think it is, from my friend Dick Lynn, I'll get it right in a minute, Dick Lynn, machinist. I did a visit to him last year. So I got this length of 1 5/8 and turned part of that down a little bit, left it much larger than the 1.5 inches from the plans, so I have scaled things up just a little bit, and what you'll see in this video is just making the main body, which looks dead simple, but there's several things to do. And what I've got left to do, which will be in part 2, we've got the, I guess we could call it the cross slide. Threaded each end, and the centre section takes the centre, and the centre itself, which is actually not all that big. You can see that. And on the right hand, oh wait a minute, well, as you're looking at it on the right hand side, that's the control knob, shall we say, for each side, so you can advance it one way or the other. And in fact the centre, I've got some 1/2 inch drill rod which I'll use for that, so I can harden it. Anyway, that's about it. Far too much waffle, always is. I hope everybody's surviving with this crap weather. I know I always talk about the weather, but there's always something to talk about. I've got standing water out here you wouldn't believe, but not as bad as some areas. I did mow yesterday and chewed up the whole place because it was so wet, but today it's even wetter. Anyway, I'll be back in the shop as and when I can, bits and pieces, get these other aspects done, and hopefully get the thing finished, but it probably won't be all that quick. So there we are. Hope to see you later on at some point, and thanks for watching guys, take care, bye. Well, making a start on this tailstock offset, the plan suggests using a Morse taper for the spindle of the quill of the tailstock, but I'm going to go different on that and eventually bore this out to 1 1/8, so it will go over the quill and have an indexing lock screw at the bottom to engage in the keyway. Anyway, at the moment I've just prepared this piece of 4140. It's the only darn piece I've got, and I haven't got much else that's close to the size I want without turning down. So anyway, what we've done so far, we've drilled that and threaded it. It's actually, what is it, 5/16 18 I think, and this piece of 1/2 inch already had a bit of turn down on it, so what I've done is just threaded that, and what I'm going to do in a minute is put some medium Loctite on that, and the reason is I want to be able to use this in a 5C collet, in a collet block on the mill, because we've got to finish up with a 1/2 inch hole all the way through, which is to take the sliding index system, and 90 degrees to that we need a slot. It'll all become clear as mud later. And I think the slot possibly may have to use a slitting saw for that. I haven't quite worked out how I'm going to do it. Anyway, this is the starting point, so I'm going to get this with some Loctite and let it dry off, and then we'll come back whenever I get to it. Well, here's the mill set up. Collet block with a 1/2 inch collet, which is holding the temporary holding piece that we showed earlier. The table mounted stop here, so we can rotate that reliably, and just got to do the edge finding there on the face, which we cut it off actually before and faced it, and then get each side set up with the edge finder, and then we can proceed. Houston, we got a problem. I'm using the collet block because of indexing requirements, because I've got to work both sides here and then drill through, and then I've got to get an accurate 90 degrees to drill and tap a hole. But the problem I've got here is this is not rigid enough. I did actually set up a screw jack underneath just to try and help, but it wasn't really very good. And of course what I think is the problem is twofold. Firstly, being 4140, it's not so easy to machine, and secondly, I'm only on a 1/2 inch shall I call it a threaded arbor, and that probably means that there's just a small amount of movement. Although I'm up against the collet, the thread going into this is only 5/16, and that's probably nowhere near adequate. So I can't even really safely finish this side, which has got to be just a shallow pocket, one each side for an adjustment, and then I've got to drill through. So I think what we're going to do is find some other material, which I probably have to turn down because I haven't got any 1.5 inch handy, and make a much more rigid machining arbor, so I can get rid of the very slight flex that I'm obviously getting. I don't try and cut that anymore, it's just not kind to the cutter. Alright, we're back eventually. Well, this was the problem I was having on the old setup. You see, I started milling a flat on here, which has got to go a bit deeper, one each side actually. And the thing is, probably stupid me actually, I've got this 1/2 inch piece and there's only a 5/16 thread in here, and because this has got to stick out a bit from the vise, just not quite rigid enough. So what I've done, I'm actually going just a little bit bigger than 1.5 inches, which is the plan size. This is a piece of 1 5/8, and I've just tidied it up on the outside. I've put a thread in here, 5/8 11, which is pretty coarse. In fact, I haven't cut a full thread because it's just hard work. So I've got to make a piece of, oh, I see, I found an old piece of material, pretty mucky. That's got some thread on it. I'll cut that off or work on the other end and put a 5/8 thread on, and then we'll put that into this end with some medium Loctite, and hopefully that will help when I come to use the milling cutter again. Now this is very short thread. It's virtually a 50% thread, and I'm cheating. Excuse me. This has got to be bored out eventually, and tapping this is 5/8 11, and tapping it was pretty hard work. It's not a very good tap that I've got, so I've just got enough thread to engage, and then with some medium Loctite in there, I think it'll do. We'll give it a try anyway. Well, we've got the same basic setup as I showed earlier, but which turned out not to be working very well. I'm just finishing a cut on here. I'm only going down into this about 80 thou. I've just got a tiny bit to finish, and I'm taking very light feed. So I think the extra rigidity is making quite a difference there. Whoops, sorry, hand and arm. We just got a full circle on there, and the next thing is to drill through, and we'll do the flat on the other side after drilling. We've got to finish up with a reamed 1/2 inch through here. So we'll go down small and get a pilot. Right, that should help with the next size. I think I'll go up in 2 steps and finish up at 3164. So we'll change over. I've actually got a nice fresh stub drill for this 3164, so I'm going straight for it. I'll get away with it, I think. Well, that shows you how this little machine doesn't really have enough torque for some jobs, so I've got to take it a bit steady, and I've only got 2 inches of quill travel. That's why I'm starting so low down. Let me carry on. I'll bring you back in a minute. Now I'll just get this reamer through, see how we go. So yet again I haven't got enough damn torque. It's crazy, isn't it? I'll have to persevere on that, take it gradual. Oh, it's amazing the drag you get just from a reamer, particularly with a pissant little motor driving it. I'm through now anyway. Yeah, that was hard work, and a Bridgeport would have just rattled through it with no problem. Alright, we'll turn over and mill the other side. Now I'm just going to mill down on this side. Take it slow. Well, that was quick because I already got a hole. Now the next thing, which is a slight headache, I'm just trying to see if we can show you on the. We can look at this on the plan. Right, see here. We need a transverse 1/4 inch. Now, because I'm working on 90 degrees and using the collet block for accuracy, I think I'll have to cut that with a slitting saw in increments, which is a bit of a fiddle. I'll see what we can set up and try and do that as accurately as we can. I'd like to use a milling cutter, but I don't think there's a way I can do that. So we're going to try this approach with a slitting saw. This saw is not staggered tooth, and the tooth dimension is 0.55. So having done a careful touch off up here, we've subtracted the 55 thou, and then we've dropped down to a calculated point here, and we'll take a cut all the way across, and then we'll come down by a 1/4 inch minus the tooth thickness. See how that works out. It's to play safe, I'm trying to go about a thou down, and I'll go just probably a thou less down to my next cut, and that leaves me the option to finish the slot with a file and or adjust the centre which is going to go in there. Well, not quite bozo, but problems. That other cutter was making quite a wide kerf, although it's got tungsten inserts, but it was making hard going of it, so I've changed to a much smaller one, fine tooth and a bit of oil drip, and I've set it up as close as I can to the original cut. Nothing ever goes quite right, does it? Well, at least that was a better cut. I've got to check the thickness of this and decide how far I've got to drop down. I think this is one of the worst damn saws I've ever used, but it was all I have that seems to suit the purpose. And trouble is, quite a lot of my sitting saws I bought used, so you never really know what they're going to do. But I think we'll get away with this one. I'm going to take the second cut and see what we finish up with. Well, there we are. I actually had it a bit far in. I was catching the arbor on there. Anyway, we've got the cut. Sort of. Now the final thing before I move this, seeing as I'm going to bore out the back to go onto the tailstock quill, I need a threaded hole in here at 90 degrees to engage with the keyway, so that's got to be done whilst we've got accurate degree setup. Just out of curiosity, before I do anything else, a piece of quarter inch rod here. Tiny bit tight here for some reason. Very slight, probably a couple of tenths. So I'm quite pleased with that after all the messing around. Yep, I'll probably just finish that off with a file if necessary. I've only got a drilled quarter inch because it's all going to be bored out later to 1 1/8 inch. I shall be tapping that through later, but I'll just make a tap start which will make it easier when I come to it later. 1/4 this is. So that gives me about 2 threads to start for a hand tap later on, when it will become a through hole. And as I said, I think, which I did, this is for the detent, shall we say, for the keyway on the quill. So I think I've finished with that in the vise there for now. I'll see what to do next. Got this heated up and broke the grip of the Loctite. I did the job adequately for what we needed, and the next thing is to set this up in the chuck and get this back end bored out. Well, to get this bored out, you may not see a lot here because I'm using a very short, small boring bar. So I'll video a bit here and then I'll just press on and bring you back when we're getting closer to target, which is 1.125 1 1/8 inch for the quill. I'm getting closer on this. Fairly soon I'll have to take it slow and do some careful checks. I'm using the same boring bar because it's working alright. It saves me setting up again. Not quite the best of finishes with this tool, but I think I'll carry on with it. It's holding up pretty good. Yeah, so I'm just on the last cuts here. Right, well, I haven't put a chamfer on here yet, but moment of truth, acid test. Let's see what the hell's going to happen. Here we go. Oh yes, that's I think we're there. Yep, I think I like that. It's probably more by luck than good judgment. I always reckon you take care on stuff, but sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes it does. Now I've got a load of chips to get rid of. So let's put a chamfer on this and then take it out and deburr it generally